Hey there, how's everybody doing? I am David from Collect All Monsters, and I am really happy to be chatting with Attack Peter, talented artist, aka Peter Santa Maria. How's it going, Peter?
Great, David. Thank you so much for having me, man. Appreciate it.
It's absolutely my pleasure. I really enjoyed your interview with AJ and Frank on
Yeah.
Kaiju Live. And you came across really articulate and enthusiastic, and definitely wanted to have you featured on our show as well. So here we are.
I'm really
Um,
glad it worked out because I love all the shows you guys are doing and putting out, and it's an honor to be counted among the guests you guys have, as well as yourselves. You guys are a wealth of information in your own right, so I appreciate it.
Oh, shucks. So for those of you who don't know Peter, you might know his work. He does these incredible, intricate linoleum block prints that we'll talk about a little bit later. Anyway, let's start off real quick. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So again, my name is Peter, and you don't ever have to call me Attack Peter if we see each other. I just always like to point that out. I always have this awful fear that somebody would expect that that's what I would be referred to as. It's just like a goof of a name that turned into a brand and stuck. But Peter's fine. But I'm an artist. Like David was saying, I do primarily block prints, linoleum block prints, and I've kind of like found a style that combines the aesthetic of the block prints as well as the aesthetic of traditional tattoos and artwork from Thailand and Japan that I really enjoy looking at. And I think it's going really well because of the stylization and the fact that it looks recognizable immediately when you see it. But the best thing that's happened in the past year is the chance to work on Godzilla and be able to work on giant kaiju monsters within the Toho universe and design my own, which we're also in the middle of.
That's absolutely fantastic. And I think that's why so many of us gravitate towards your work because it is like it's sort of a throwback, sort of got a retro style to it.
Yeah,
And I know from your chat with AJ that you're a really big fan of the Showa era, the older films,
that's my
which
stuff. Yeah,
which I am as well.
yeah,
And yeah, so let's just kind of jump in. I've got a bunch of questions here that we can just kind of go
yeah, man.
through, and so the fellow fans and collectors can get to know you a little bit better.
Let's do it.
So first of all, I'd like to ask you when and how were you first introduced to the wonderful world of Japanese giant monsters?
My first memory is conflated with so I was born in '83, and I remember seeing Godzilla '85. I remember seeing Son of Godzilla, and I remember seeing Godzilla versus King. I remember owning potentially my mind, Godzilla versus King Kong on VHS tape. So those three films I watched like crazy, as well as King Kong and stuff like that. And then all the Harryhausen dinosaur films and projects. That kind of stuff was my first memory. But my first memory loving the toys in general and like being able, because for me, like my appreciation with the toys is probably the same way other people appreciate art of any kind. I just love to hold them and admire the workmanship that goes into them. I think from an early age, even though I couldn't articulate it as such, I wanted to be part of and understand the process of who gets to make and or play with these all day for a living. And so it was an Imperial Godzilla, which, by the way, I had no idea what the name of it was. All I knew it was that's the one that you get when you go to the toy store with the big red
That's
lip,
right. That's right.
right?
Yes. Yes,
And
indeed.
it's funny to me now as as an adult looking back, I don't know whatever happened to those. I had a ton of them, like different size ones, and a King Kong that seemed to be in the same line, but I don't know what the specifics in that figure are. But the point is, those monster toys were so great because, and now I look back on it and I can kind of think on it a bit more. Why my fascination is with the monsters is because I feel like as diverse as diverse as a range of designs all these monsters have, there's also like a blank canvas vibe to them that inspires creativity in me. In other words, look at how much these, artists working on these designs were able to create with such limited raw materials and with real limitations when you think about what these suits and designs were made out of, and look at how much they were able to push the creativity, the design, the form language, and all, you could break each one down into and find animals that they're pulling from, but it's just something that I keep around my studio, these giant monsters, because they have a similar effect on me as a cup of really strong coffee.
I love
And
that. Yep.
holding one, looking at one, and sometimes it's I walk into a studio and it's a different figure that grabs my attention, or a different piece of giant monster art, and it's like that figure, that artwork has, the task that day to charge me with what I need to get going. And so I think that's why I love them so very, very much. And from a young age, it's always been monsters, because monsters don't exist. People had to create them. And that creative thread goes through and just inspires me, abstractly, I guess.
What an absolutely fantastic answer.
Thank you, David.
I love that answer.
Thank you.
Real quick, I just want to. My journey is a lot different than yours. I'm a lot older than you are. I was born in '65,
Okay.
and my first experience with Godzilla was actually Monster Zero on television.
Wow.
And this is back when there was no VHS or anything, so you had to wait till it came back on television. So my father knew that I loved dinosaurs, so he used to circle things in the TV guide. I don't know even if you know what that is.
Sure.
It's anyway.
I'm old for my age, David.
You're an old soul. Okay, got it. So he circled this movie called Monster Zero, and he said, "I think you're going to like this, since you like dinosaurs," because he knew what it was all about. And then I saw for the first time on the screen these most excellent dinosaurs, yet not dinosaurs. You know what I mean? Like imagined dinosaurs living in our world. And I was just completely fascinated and hooked at that point. And I was also lucky to start learning about Ultraman like soon after. So I was a child when I started watching Ultraman. So I have not only the cool factor that a lot of you younger guys have, I have the nostalgia factor to add to it, which really, really makes them that much more special to me. So that's
100% spot on, because there is a high level of nostalgia, because it's funny, because you mentioned Ultraman. When I was a kid, I forget what year it was that there was a Fox Kids Ultraman show on that. It was my first introduction to Ultraman. And I remember having a 12-inch or so Ultraman figure that I got at Toys R Us in Miami.
Wow.
And just think, it was after the Power Ranger craze. I think they brought something in to and I remember just loving that Ultraman design so much, but there was nothing much to watch outside of the Saturday morning shows. And it just kind of had to be a cool thing that I liked. And, I didn't have a lot of friends that were into that stuff growing up specifically. So it kind of was always like this legend of Ultraman. What is it really? And some of these, other Godzilla films, like who are these monsters? And so, but to speak to what you just said, there is a level of nostalgia in a different way for me, at least, in the sense that I remember these things being so important as a kid when the world was so open and wide and full of potential. And I wonder sometimes if collectors that really cling on to this stuff in that, like the way you're describing it, if there's something like that involved with it, that like when you hear a song that you heard when you were a teenager and it just like it was the best song you've ever heard, now you may or may not care for it the same way, but it does time travel for you. Like it takes you right back to a moment, and you can smell something, you can pick out certain friends that were there with you, all those things. For me, and perhaps for you as well, that also happens to me with visual art, and specifically the sculptures these toys are. It's bizarre, but it is the case.
1000%. And I really love this conversation, and I think just for time's sake, we should continue this another time. But I love what you're saying.
Yeah.
For me, it's 100% the nostalgia. Like these figures behind me, they all represent a time in my childhood where I used to sit in front of the TV on a rainy Saturday afternoon in the summer when I couldn't go outside and watch these movies, and I was mesmerized and I loved them. And they bring that sense of wonder and kinder, gentler times. So
I
yes,
spoke to James Groman about it, not to go on longer, but we came up with this term charged totems, that
yeah,
they're like
absolutely.
they're more than just what they are. They hold something else in them.
They absolutely do. What is your all-time favorite monster flick? Since you said you liked Harryhausen and Universal Monsters too, so it doesn't have to be a Godzilla or a
Sure,
Japanese
sure.
giant monster. What is your very favorite monster movie that inspires your work, or that inspired your work?
It's funny because it's changed over time, and there's different movies that for different reasons. And recently the question was asked to me by AJ on his show, what's my favorite kaiju movie? And I said, not my favorite, but the best kaiju movie I thought, and I got tons of crap from him, was I told him I thought Pacific Rim was one of the best made kaiju films. I know he had the same reaction as you. And I'm not saying
Hey, no judgments
no, 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 no,
whatsoever.
no. But
No
it's okay.
judgments
I
whatsoever.
was saying that it makes sense that someone like Guillermo del Toro could, you know, in appeal to a broader audience, and that's why I thought it was a great film, because it's going to bring more people into the fandom. And but I think I always go back to my favorite monster movies are, well, I watched over and over again the 70s King Kong film. I watched Mighty Joe Young, the Harryhausen film, a
Fantastic.
ton, if that counts. I don't know if it really counts.
Of course it
Um,
does. Yes.
I loved the Emir growing up.
20 Million Miles to Earth is a fantastic science fiction film.
But I always go back to Ibira, Horror of the Deep, and Son of Godzilla, because there's something about the giant monsters on a tropical setting that
Yes.
does it for me in a weird. I don't understand it. I can't pinpoint why. I think it's the Saturday morning vibe you were describing, because I remember them airing Son of
Saturday
Godzilla
mornings. Yep.
so much, dude, and I just loved it.
And Godzilla versus the Sea Monster was always
Yeah.
one of my favorites growing up, because they showed it a lot on Channel 9, which I got back in the East Coast. And the funny thing is, this is really think that I'm a geek. So Keith,
I think we're far beyond that, David.
Yeah, we're far beyond that.
Yes.
My husband and I went to Tahiti on our honeymoon.
Oh, awesome.
And we went to another island called Moorea, which is a little bit off of Tahiti. Anyway, it's kind of an exotic tropical location in the South Pacific. So guess what I brought in my suitcase? Little Godzilla and Ibira Gashapon to
Amazing.
shoot photos on the tropical island, because I figured I'd never get that close to either Solgale Island or Lychee Island, where Godzilla versus the Sea Monster was supposedly set. So anyway, yeah, I've got it bad. It's bad. So,
but there's something about that, and I can't figure out. Like, I love gothic horror, The Creature from the Black Lagoon. It's always something like that. It's always something with underwater monsters are my favorite.
Underwater monsters are great. Yeah. So, all right, let's go back. What's if you'd like to explain briefly the process of how you create one of your awesome linoleum block prints, that would be great.
Essentially, what I do, and I got some props here. Let me. So essentially, what I do is I'll take a piece of linoleum, which, most people are familiar with that term when it comes to flooring.
Yes, indeed.
But this is like a mounted piece of linoleum from the company is called Speedball. It's mounted on wood, but it comes often in just floppy sheets too. But what I do is I'll do a drawing on this leathery vinyl texture, and I'll carve into it. And in fact, I'm like in the middle of a carving here. I can show you.
That's great.
For the October, we're doing a month of monsters.
Oh, fantastic!
This is midway.
Wow.
This my take on the a gill man.
Oh, I love that. That is so
right.
Cool. That is.
And excellent. So now I'm doing a werewolf design, and so what happens is you take a carving tool, which is like a U or V-shaped metal gouge, and you carve out everything but the part of the design that you want to show up on paper. So you carve out all the background space essentially. And then once you're finished carving, so here's a little Godzilla carving, right?
Oh, beautiful.
So this is carved, you can see the gray has been carved away and the black has not been. So once it's done, you, I don't see if I have, oh yeah, my office is like a set of props. But you take a roller that's technically called a brayer, and you roll it in ink, and you just coat the surface, and you put paper on top, put pressure on the back of the paper, and you pull it off. And it's like a giant stamp is really what it is. It's the same science as when you were a kid and you behaved real well, or you got a good grade on your paper and your teacher stamped your hand. It's the same exact thing. It's just I'm making the stamp essentially.
Wow, that's so cool. I
Yeah.
remember doing that back in the day
Yes.
actually in high school and in college. I had a class where we sort of didn't really dive deep into it, but I actually have done that process before. It's really fun, and you're definitely a master at it. It's incredible. And one thing I should say to the viewers out there is this guy has to work backwards too, especially
Yeah.
if there's text on there.
Oh
So
man.
that in itself is just like fascinating to me, and I don't know how your mind works that way. I don't think I could probably do that.
You know what I do? I just think of letters as shapes, and where it gets really tricky is when I'm doing anything in Japanese, right?
Got it.
So,
Got it.
and which I'm not fluent in Japanese at all. Like, and what's really weird is I'm learning Japanese like backwards. So I'm actually probably never going to be able to read it because when I see like Gojira written properly, it looks backwards to me now.
Oh, interesting. Yep.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but what I'm doing is I'm collecting a group of friends who speak Japanese fluently and can write it, and I send things to them before I include it in my.
That's smart. Super smart.
And even then, there's sometimes debate over what's right and what's wrong, but essentially we get it done. Like this morning, I had a quest with a few friends figuring out the translation for something that I can't reveal just yet.
Ooh.
But nonetheless, it's a lot of fun. I appreciate your compliment, but I would see myself far from a master. I have so many contemporaries or people that I admire and look up to that really are incredible printmakers. Tomas Iho is one that I would recommend people look up. He works a lot with Guillermo del Toro, and he just did a beautiful Pan's Labyrinth set of tarot cards.
Excellent.
There are just incredible people out there in the medium. What I did is I stumbled onto the medium. I did it, like you said, in school fairly off a couple times, middle school, and then I became a teacher for 13 years teaching art at all grade levels from kindergarten through graduate students. And I noticed that whenever I would teach this lesson, the kids went all in for it, no matter who they were, what they were. So I tried to use it more and more, and then I started just doing it more and more. But my drawing style is very different from a lot of the drawing styles you'll see from traditional printmakers. There seems to be a trend where people who work in this medium tend to be very influenced by either medieval artwork, which is where a lot of Dürer and also
Yep.
and or folk art. So you'll see a lot of like the way you'll see like these folk hand carved signs and letters in like coffee shops nowadays. There's a certain aesthetic that's from folk art, and then people who are like Japanese traditionalists. So there's a lot of tradition in the medium, and I have none of that because I'm a punk ass, and so my influences come more from like the 90s toys that I grew up playing with,
which makes perfect sense. It makes
like I love Mad Balls and Boglins and Gremlins and Critters, and then I also love looking at Mike Mignola's artwork, who to me was like a virtual mentor. He doesn't know me from Adam. I've met him a couple times, but his artwork literally caused me to drop everything that I was doing in my life in around 2002 or 3 and go back to my love of drawing as a kid and start from scratch. And at the time I was
excellent gig, man. That's so great. You're doing what you love,
Yeah, I love it, man.
And you're really excelling at it too. So
thank you.
This is a perfect segue because my very next question you've sort of answered already. Are there any artists that inspire you and your work? You've already mentioned few, but are there any kaiju artists? Let's be a little bit more specific that sort of inspire you and get your creative juices flowing, as it were.
Well, the funny thing is that when it comes to I love, like we mentioned Ray Harryhausen and his drawings. I love looking at William Stout, and
I can see some influence from William Stout's work.
I appreciate it. I love his stuff. But the artists, it kind of got surprised because when I saw the art lineup for the Mondo Godzilla show that didn't actually happen because of the pandemic, the way people were interpreting Godzilla was so exciting. I love Frank Avia's take. This poster I have here. Kent
Yes,
Williams.
that's beautiful.
Kent Williams did a beautiful Godzilla. I love Tom Whalen. Tom Whalen's art. If you don't know, he works a lot with Mondo. He does these really beautiful, like clean, colorful takes on Godzilla.
Yes. Is he the guy that does sort of like the matchbook inspired designs? Do you know who that artist is? I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
I'm not sure. I have to double check on it. But
okay, the matchbook guy is Chet Phillips.
Chet Phillips. Yes. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Tom Whalen's the guy that did my Kaiju Cast poster.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Perfect. Wow.
Yeah. And he would be a great future guest for you guys too, because he's a real sweaty like me about this stuff, like big geeks. But I always forget the name, and I'm so embarrassed. But the artist who did all the Heisei Godzilla posters, I have the Space Godzilla poster here. I can't remember his name, Japanese guy. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Noriyoshi Orai.
Him.
I feel like the producer on the Howard Stern show.
You're Baba Booey. I love it.
So you have it, so you can say it now.
No, I did not catch it. I've tried to learn a couple of times because I reference it enough, but those to me are like as iconic for giant monsters as like Jack Kirby is for superheroes. Like those.
Perfect.
Those are the posters that I remember as a kid. Again, kid of the 80s and 90s, seeing those posters go around to like comic shops or whatever. I'm like, what the hell? It was like now, oh my God, now his name is escaping me. The Star Wars artist, the painter from the posters, Kyle.
Drew
Struzan.
Yeah.
Drew Struzan, like that iconic look in those movie posters is how I feel about these Japanese Godzilla posters. But yeah, there's a lot of great artists out there, man. Every day I'm learning new guys and checking out new work, and I really love like the stylization of some of the toys that I see too. I feel like that's where you see a lot of exploration as well.
For sure. So yeah, so that's great. So let's just keep going with the vibe of your creativity.
Kiku Punk. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Kiku Punk, for anybody listening, is a tattoo artist who does incredible kaiju designs, and he's blowing out these prints and t-shirt designs. You guys gotta check him out. He's not as well known in the collector community, and it's a shame. I just bought a poster of his designs of all the ultra kaiju. I gotta show it to you. It'll blow your mind. Brilliant
cool.
Stuff.
Maybe what we can do is include some of these names and artists in show notes, so everyone can sort of see what we're talking about. So, do you create any art that utilizes any other techniques besides linoleum block prints?
It's funny. I used to do mostly paintings, and if you go back on my Instagram and look, you'll see a lot of paintings I was doing. I was experimenting even back then with like original giant monsters and stuff. And I did a whole run of Mars Attacks painted trading cards that were for Topps trading cards that were inserted randomly into packs.
Oh wow, that's pretty darn cool.
2015, I think, more or less. I did 25 separate paintings that were randomly inserted into cards, and then I did some digital stuff for a while. And even today, like there are times when I'll do like a T-shirt design or something where I draw digitally, but it's meant to represent the stylization that you would see in the card, which is kind of a new trick. It's like that I'm trying to teach myself is the aesthetic that I do when I'm carving is often caused by the pushback of the medium. There are certain details and flourishes and flares that you can't pull off as easily when you're carving that you could with a pen or a pencil. And so it's like I'm trying to train my brain to be restrained when I'm designing digitally so that I can recreate that look. But it's a work in progress.
So it's
kind of a lot too.
It's kind of the best of both worlds, right?
Definitely.
If you can master that technique, it's like what I feel makes a perfect contemporary monster movie is when you utilize classic tokusatsu techniques and you just enhance it with CGI, not one or the other.
Colossal?
I'm sorry?
Did you see the film Colossal?
I did see Colossal. Colossal was great fun.
It's a great movie, right? And it's like a different take, and I feel like there are moments where I don't think it is a person in the suit, but there's sometimes where I feel like it could be because of the way they designed it. It was really great.
Yeah, I love that we think that it could be.
Right, right, exactly.
And just jumping back, when you answered Pacific Rim as your answer to your favorite, and I'm like, I was very surprised because you really were going on about the old school tokusatsu where you could like sort of see the clunkiness of it and see the
Yeah.
artistry that goes behind it, and all of that kind of gets lost to me with CGI. I know there's a lot that goes into CGI, don't get me wrong, but for me, and this is why I never really gravitated towards the new MonsterVerse as much as the old school films. It's because I think that the heart of it is missing. The true artistry of crafting every single building, every single plane, every single grain of sand that's on the beach. It's all put there, physically by someone.
You know what's funny? Oh, I don't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. No, I just wanted to say that's to me.
I get it.
Like,
I understand. I'll say a couple of things. There's a I don't know what it was for, and maybe you guys can tell me. There was an Ultraman short that was floating around the internet a few years ago. There was just a battle scene.
Yes.
Obviously CGI, but it looked.
It did. It looked like classic tokusatsu.
It looked like the Apex, right?
It did. It did.
What was that?
Oh, geez. I think that was just a short.
That blew my mind. That should be the look of these films. Okay, that's the one thing.
Agree.
The other thing, I was fortunate enough to be on the set of Pan's Labyrinth in Spain when they were filming that. And that was right before Peter Jackson's King Kong was coming out. And the reason I
love Pan's Labyrinth. That movie is just
and so Guillermo del Toro is a practical effects guy.
Absolutely, 100%.
And I sat down and I was in craft services eating with him and believe it was Lloyd Levin, one of the producers in the film, and they were talking about the excitement of this King Kong movie coming out from Peter Jackson. And I remember at the time, before they had shown anything, I said, I'm like, don't you guys think it's weird that it's going to be a fully CG gorilla, And I remember Guillermo del Toro, who was the nicest guy, said, dude, but what do you think? They're going to do like a multi-$100 million box office with a guy in a suit? It's not going to happen anymore. People won't accept it. And so it got me to think. Now, hear me out. This is Guillermo del Toro.
I'm listening.
So this is a guy who loves the medium, right?
Oh, yeah.
It got me to think so much about it because, number one, you need somebody to go first, right? You need somebody to try it out. And then whatever works, good, whatever doesn't. There's a lot of heart in that movie, whether it was – I find the first 30 minutes hard to watch. But there's a lot of heart in that performance with Andy Serkis and the gorilla. But
I agree.
If you consider how much we love tokusatsu and then how much we also love stop motion – it's two different technologies, right? And then there are bad examples of tokusatsu and bad examples of stop motion. And then eventually, I think we're going to get to a point. Well, this is why Pacific Rim to me is important, is because if enough people say, I love this genre idea, then eventually we'll get a chance where people will create like the James Gunn of the kaiju world. Because, did you follow James Gunn's films before Guardians? They were like super homaged to trauma films, like Deep, like Slither, for example. We're going to get somebody to come up and figure out the technology to do a contemporary take on a tokusatsu feel, but done probably mostly in CGI. And I think they'll nail it. And
what you're talking about, I agree with 100%. Now, let me tell you what I think has sort of revitalized the suitmation practical effects aspect of big budget films. If you watch the latest Star Wars films, the last three, they relied a lot on practical effects. Even the Solo film, right? The Han Solo film.
I love what was that creature in the well that was so good?
Oh yeah, that was Lady Proxima from the beginning.
Loved it.
I think that was the perfect melding.
I agree.
Of CGI and quite a bit of practical effects. So that proved that it can be done on a big, popular, multi-million-dollar scale. And but your suggestion of getting people into the genre, I think that Pacific Rim definitely did that for it. And I love Jackson's King Kong. I think that it should be cut down drastically. I think about a quarter of the film is not necessary.
I agree.
But I agree. There's a lot of heart to it, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of care and painstaking detail in it. And he definitely has love for the original.
Yeah.
And one more thing I'm going to say, and then we'll move on, is you were talking about stop motion animation, and I always prefer that to CGI because stop motion animation looks fake but feels real. CGI looks real but feels fake.
Yeah,
that's the way I feel. Someone else said that, but I've always adopted that philosophy, and like you said, it can be done poorly and it can be done fantastically. So there's
we're gonna get there.
We're gonna get there. I think
we're gonna get there, and I don't want to wait, and I won't be satisfied until we get there and it's in VR, because I want to be in the city while Ultraman is battling Gango.
Yes. Oh yeah.
There.
Oh my God. Yeah. And I bet you're a fan of the those Ultra Remix figures. Have you ever seen any of those?
I do. I keep I think that version of Dada is my favorite version I've ever seen of the
super creepy. I actually have one of the first ones that they did. It's the Bemlar.
Oh, I was just gonna say the Paul Komoda Bemlar is so good, dude.
Yeah, done by Paul, and he's just like a phenomenal artist, and I love that I have a piece of his. I met him years ago, back when I used to go to Chiller Theater in the 90s, and I love that I have that piece, and that's a really interesting series, and it sounds like what you are sort of looking at as things that you like and would like to see. Anyhow, all right, let's I mean, we could just go on and chat all day long, and because we seem to go off on some tangents, but
yeah, man.
I'm loving the direction of the conversations.
This is just fun stuff, man. And like, I forgot, I guess we were talking yesterday, in preparation for this, but a lot of these conversations, I just, me voicing out loud things that I think about, that I'm sure it's great. Well, it definitely is great to do it when someone's actually listening in a thoughtful way. Because this is super niche stuff. Like, we're on a podcast called Collect All Monsters. We're obviously big time fans, right? But it's super niche stuff. You don't get to just go to the grocery store and bump into a friend and go, "What'd you think about stop motion versus?" It doesn't happen. So
you're right.
This is where we do it. We exercise the giant demons. You understand? This is what we're doing here, and it's just fun to riff on it. It's like jazz, man.
It doesn't happen, and it's always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to find out when you go to your first G-Fest that you're going to be surrounded with a group of people who you don't have to explain why you dig this stuff, because we all get it. We all get it. We all get it. So
I've been going to conventions for years now, and every time I go, I find that I'm falling into a deeper cast of geekness with this stuff, and that there are less and less people that are prevalent. There was one retailer who ever sold it in Florida, and it's hard to find people to geek out with it about it. So I'm just super grateful for it.
Well, we're here anytime you want to geek out. We're always here, and we're going to keep going. We're going to keep going until we can't go any further. So, all right, let's get back to our questions. I tried to create these questions to not duplicate AJ's questions, to sort of give a different spin to them, or ask a different way or a different question.
Funny, AJ said he wrote all those questions specifically knowing you would never think of those questions to ask.
Yeah, no, they were great questions, and I listened to the show, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't just ask the same one. Anyway, having said that, let's see what my next question is. What are some pieces, some of your creations that you are most proud of, if you'd like to share them?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't have them here. The Godzilla prints that I've done with Mondo are probably some of my proudest moments. And this is not one of them. This is one of them that I made before I was on their roster.
Is that the Kaiju Daisenso Monster Zero?
This is like somebody private commissioned me who wanted me to do Godzilla and Ghidorah. And then, I think he wanted Mothra and Rodan too, but in the size, I couldn't fit Rodan, so I just squeezed in a Mothra larva. But it was just not based on any particular movie. It was just,
Got
you
it.
know,
Just
and
those monsters and
yeah. But it was one of these things where it's like, let me make this and put it on the internet, and I'll either get a cease and desist or maybe they'll hire me. It's one of the two. And but getting hired to work with the official Toho license, and as an artist, I'm sure all the artists will tell you it's really difficult, even when you know great folks who work there. Like I love Chris Mowry. I'm sure you guys know him.
Yes, of course. He seems like a really great guy. I never met him in person, but he seems like a really awesome
one
guy.
of the nicest guys you can meet. And the point is, before that, it seemed like an impenetrable fortress to get their attention to see if they would approve this work to be done in an official capacity, especially since I stylized this stuff quite a bit, you know?
Correct.
And so getting to work on a Godzilla poster that was officially licensed, and then getting to work on 4, 5, technically 6. That is such an honor that I told the other day, I said, I could die now, and in terms of my art career, and feel like at least I got to do that, and that's a great honor. But
it is a great honor, and you deserve it because they're great pieces.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
And I love your Mothra versus Godzilla piece. That's my favorite.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to be frank. It's when that was the first one I started working on. You know, like the opportunity to work with Toho came through Mondo, and that's another gang of people that are just, if you love the stuff they put out, buy it without any hesitation, because they are just the nicest and realest geeks out there. They die, bleed for what they do. But that opportunity came from being at Comic-Con and meeting them there and talking to them about working on something. And I said, look, I have a lot of stuff on my plate, but if we can do some Godzilla stuff, do you guys have the Toho license? And they go, yes, we have the Godzilla license, Toho license. I mean, oh my God, it was a coincidence. It was a coincidence.
Wow. See, that's how things happen.
Dude. I was annoyingly asking everybody who came to my booth and wanted to talk business, do you have the Toho license? Do you have the Toho license? And then Mondo finally said, yes, we do. And that's how that came to be. But I was working on that first Mothra and Godzilla print, and I was dying inside, you know, partially excited, but partially like, holy crap, man, this is going to get blasted all over the internet. And I'm either going to get, you know, some praise or people are going to tear me a new one. And it's hard when you're making something to see it objectively and to see it for more than the little flaws and things that you are less than pleased about, or things that you wished had turned out different, or even if you like what it looks like, you had a vision in your head of what it was going to be and they kind of got away from you. But luckily people love that design and love that series, and it's changed my entire career because it just put me into a different stratosphere in terms of people's awareness. But I was terrified making it, and the more I love the stuff that I'm working on, the more terrified I am, because I have a tremendous fear of shame, and I have a tremendous fear that not that it's not going to sell or people aren't going to want to buy it, but that one of the artists that I admire tremendously or respect tremendously is going to see it and then make this association between who I am or what my potential is and a piece that doesn't represent my fullest potential. You know what I'm saying? So like,
I do.
That's a real feeling that I have. I talk about that because I want people to know that like that's normal, but it is uncomfortable for sure when I'm working on it. Even though in my head, I'm like, okay, you always go through this and just, you don't know what people are going to think. The piece that you think is going to be great, no one cares about. The piece that you think is going to be terrible, everybody loves. So just shut up, quiet down that neurotic side of you and just get to work. But it's every time I work on anything.
Yeah, well, you know, you should put that fear to rest, because
it's just it does make me want to bring my A game every time in a different, like, even when I think I'm here, I go, that's not enough, I gotta be here. Nope, now I gotta be here, now I gotta be here. And so it's good. It's like this fight or flight mentality, you know. So I never flight. You're
constantly upping your game,
trying to,
and you know, you care about this stuff. It's not just like you're not phoning it in by any stretch of the imagination. That's obvious in the final product, and you've acquired like a body of work that people absolutely love. You know, I'm really picky. Okay. And these show films, as we mentioned before, are nostalgic and very special to me and many of the collectors and fans, especially the older ones. So the fact that you have our endorsement because you're taking something that we've been seeing since we were little kids, putting your spin on it, yet showing a lot of respect to it, and making it recognizable enough that we know exactly what it is. Hats off to you, bravo. Put that those negative thoughts to rest, because people really dig what you do. So
thanks, man. And that was part of my goal too. We've spoke about this a little bit, but one of my biggest goals is if I'm working on something that's beloved, I want to know what the people who
Yes,
really are diehard feel. And it's not because I'm going to change for other people, but
no,
more because I want to make sure that what I feel is the essence and the exciting part of a design or a film or a sequence of things that, I want to make sure that we're eye to eye on that. And if you, anybody has some insight into something that I may have glossed over in the past, I'm like, ooh, that's a good point. I never thought to focus on that. So I like going into the Facebook groups, into subreddits, and putting stuff out there and go, guys, what do you think? And I'm not looking for praise. I'm looking for there is something like you're mentioning. There's like this, this like inside group of folks that really care, and I like to know what they think. And that was part of why I was excited to bring out Takaro. You were asking me about pieces I'm proud of. So Takaro is my own kaiju creation, this giant monster, and I've designed him with the sense that I want to be able to once Toho gets tired of me and Mondo get tired of me, and I'm not working on everybody else's favorite monsters, I want to make sure I have my own roster of big monsters that I can play with. And so I've been bringing them out alongside the ride of the Godzilla figures. I mean,
which is the way to do it. Which is absolutely the way to do it. And you're amazing. You just
thank you, brother.
Anticipated my next question, and it's like, can you tell us about some of your original creature designs? That was
so there you go.
And and that piece that you just showed us was pretty amazing. And I can definitely see what you were talking about, your influence. I see some Mars attacks in there, all stuff in there. Yeah. So, but it's still clearly a Peter piece, an attack Peter piece, So, and what I think is, something that artists should strive for is, when I see something, I'm going to say, oh my God, that's an attack Peter piece. Oh, that's a Bob Eggleton piece. Or that's a John Bellotti piece. Once that happens, I think that is just an amazing thing. And
it's the most important thing for me, because even if, look, there are amazing artists out there and they're technicians in the sense that they could recreate anything they see more realistic than a photograph in a lot of ways. And you've got to have a skill set that's in that realm, but you have to develop that skill tree, I should say. But there is a sink or swim reality to the art world, and that is, you've got to be able to do something that if anybody else tried to do it, it would look like they're imitating you.
Yes,
and you've got to be, because I'm never going to be like the best of anything. There's always going to be someone better than me in a technical aspect, but no one's going to have the same collection of influences that I have.
Nope.
And no one's going to, like we could all get the same raw ingredients to make a smoothie, but you might like more banana than strawberry, and I might like more strawberry than banana, but it's the same ingredients. And so as an artist, you've got to figure out a way that when people see your stuff, like you said, they go, that's his work, that's her work. And the artists that I admired so much growing up were those, because to me, that's like a magic trick. It's like, how did you come up with that? How did you come up with that? And how do you pull it off consistently every time? Like, there's an amazing artist I always talk about named Scott Morse, and he's an illustrator and a comic book artist, but he also worked for Pixar and studied as an animator. And when I saw his artwork, it was like so abstracted and stylized, but all I wanted to do is say, commission him on the spot at a Comic-Con. Okay, how would you draw Batman? Oh, good. How would you draw King Kong? Oh my God, nice. How would you? And it was like, yes, I want the art, but I want to see what you would do. And so that's what's exciting to me as a collector, and I try to put that into the artwork as well.
Well, here it is in a nutshell. There's a vast difference between inspiration and imitation.
Yeah.
Okay. You're clearly inspired by the artists that you've mentioned, but yet you have your own style. You're not imitating anyone else's style. You've created this niche for yourself. And that's especially apparent with your original creations. But you have a really great ability to sort of draw out the quintessence of Godzilla and all of his other monster friends and foes, which, that is the name of the game for me. Like if you can like get that essence or quintessence, however you want to put it, and still make it your own, then there it is. There it is. And you have definitely done that in spades. So,
and Godzilla will test you because it's a giant lizard monster, in a lot of ways. And everybody is going to think of what that means differently, but it's either cool or it's not. And the world will tell you fast.
It's either cool or it's not. And being a student of photographs and being like a semblance of a photographer myself, I try to get I'm trying to get to the point where people will see one of my toy photographs or any other photograph and say, "Hey, that's a David photograph. That's a David Dobko photograph." And I think I'm almost there.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit more difficult in the world of photography because, everything's been done. Really, there's nothing that hasn't been done, but it's the way you do it and the way you come about it. And when I do a toy photograph, for example, I try to photograph it like no one else has. Like there are people like, John Ruffin, who does these absolutely beautiful compositions and photographs of, just all the monsters. And he actually uses some, Photoshop and stuff like that. And then we have Steve Heron, who is a modeler who creates these beautiful sets.
I love
from
that.
scratch, right? And he builds his models, he builds his sets. And what I do is a lot more simple. I just take a figure and put it in a position like I would call what I do kaiju portraits or monster portraits.
Yeah.
And use lighting and background and angles and photographing it from a different perspective to make it like uniquely mine, and not because I'm not trying to compete with those guys, because those guys are like, as good as it gets, and they are my inspirations. But I know what you mean, and it, like I said, it's more difficult in the world of photography than it is in art, even as far as I can see.
I mean, I got to tell you, what you do with your photographs, first of all, they are very recognizable instantly. And they are, if you want to see just how hard it is to do what you're doing, I mean, there are some, and God bless them, there are some people online who'll take pictures of figures that make me not want to buy it.
Yeah.
Yours does the opposite. There are figures that I thought, that's a cool figure, and one day if I see it, I'll pick it up maybe, to, oh my God, I got to have it now. And the way that you photograph it it's beauty photography for these monsters. It's bizarre how well it works. And I feel like it's crazy that no one's approached you and commissioned you to do like a whole encyclopedia collection of all the figures that we can possibly have documented that way. It's outrageous. Not only that, like I would proudly hang a giant, like a print of the photography that you do in my house. I love it. It's like having a gigantic figure in your house. Beautiful stuff.
Well, that's a huge compliment, and we can definitely make that happen.
Okay,
send me your favorite figure, and I'll be happy to do a trade.
Awesome.
Artist, whatever. But
Okay.
that's a huge compliment, and
Awesome.
I'm working on slowly. I'm working on creating images, getting enough images so I can actually make a book.
It would be fantastic.
And that's coming. That's something that's coming down the line for me. But this is not about me today. This is about you. So this is going to switch gears a little bit. Why don't you tell us about your Japan adventure? Because I know you went to Japan from listening to your interview with AJ and Frank. Yeah. So if you'd like to talk a little bit about that, that'd be fun.
First of all, I'm so happy that when my wife Gabby and I went last year, because we almost didn't go. That last year was, I call it the year of dreams. We did everything we've wanted to do, like our whole lives. All these wonderful things happened, and one of our lifelong goals for both of us was to go to Japan. And it was always the thing about money and time and who would you go with, because not everybody's as excited as me to go, and and we're both super like Japan files and couldn't be more excited to go. And we documented so much of it on Instagram that the whole trip, people followed along and were like sending us cool ideas of where to go and telling us where to eat.
Love
And
that.
it was awesome. It was like having a live TripAdvisor, crowdsourced TripAdvisor. And so it's all there on my Instagram if anybody wants to see it. But we did such wonderful things. I mean, of course, we did the Mandarake visits, and we went to Kaiju Sakaba, but we also got to go to the Kyoto Handicraft Center, and I took spent the afternoon printing with individual woodblock prints, so the layered prints, which was amazing.
That's neat. That's super
yeah. The people were amazing. I love nature and doing anything with nature. My wife as well. So we did the Harashiyama. We did the climb where you go and you see the monkeys at the top of the mountain.
Oh my god.
We did oh my god, we did so much. It was just the best time. We did the Osaka Aquarium. I mean, we were guaranteed to go back again this year. And one of the things that we did, and I gotta send you pictures of this.
Please
we were
do.
walking in Kyoto, and I know you've been a few times to Japan, more than a few times. And in Kyoto, we were walking around because we would always say, let's just explore. And if we find something that either of us is a geek about, let's see what's going on. And there wasn't like a big mandarake or anything in Kyoto, but there was this little obscure, unassuming toy shop in a house called Crazy Papa's. And
no way.
I'm only 5'5", and I had to squat to get in. And I have pictures and a little bit of video to show you.
I can't wait to see that.
Dude, it was a guy who it would look like a house, but you could only see like a quarter of the way into what you suspect was his living room area. And it was like toys all around you like this. So I was
for
like,
sale or just to check out?
Dude, it was crazy. Wait, say again?
Was it for sale or just to come and kind of check out?
No. He was selling toys.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
See, Kyle and I and Keith and a bunch of us have been to Kyoto several times. I've never seen one toy shop in Kyoto at all. And
dude, you would never see it coming. We lucked onto it.
That's gold to me.
Not only that.
Anything?
Yeah, we got a bunch of like Bandai vinyls and stuff. He had killer stuff, but I was so nervous to spend so much early. That was like one of the first days of the trip. So I wanted to get a few things, and but and things that I gave to like my little cousins or things like that. But my point was that we would not have even gotten a chance to go inside, but we knocked because it was locked. It was not going to open door. It was like a house. You have to knock.
How did you even know? Was there a sign outside, or
I don't even remember how? I think we Googled something and it kind of led us, but we didn't even know where we were going. And then there was a house. They had an incredible amount. It had windows, and they were like old, dirty windows, but you could see old vinyl figures and stuff inside. And so we knocked. Nobody came. We knocked. Nobody came. We knocked. All of a sudden, you hear like they yelling from the inside. He opens the door. He's like, "Come! I'm Crazy Papa." And so, dude,
my God,
awesome,
that is the greatest story ever. That is
I'll tell you. I'll send the
ever.
pictures. I'll send the pictures.
Wow. See now we did a show, like a roundtable discussion about toy shopping in Japan. And like Keith, my husband, absolutely he and I are both Japan files aside from Godzilla and the toys, right? We love the food. We love the culture. We love nature. We love the people, all of the above. But, and for me, the toys and toy shopping is the icing on the cake, right? Yeah. So, we just like love exploring and doing things like that, but we never found something like that, especially in Kyoto. And I'll tell you what, that's just gold. And
it's funny because we stumbled into everything because Gabby planned an amazing itinerary, but we left everything open to explore, and that was one of the things that we stumbled across. And we did Robot Restaurant, and we loved that, and we stayed up late doing the eating on the street, in all the street food in Osaka, and it was awesome. But those little things that you stumble across are just hilarious. And he put an Attack Peter sticker on his store, so now,
oh my God,
it's a big Gamera head on the outside. So
now he's never gonna forget that either. And see, like for my 50th birthday, all I wanted to do was have an adventure. So we decided that we were going to do this trip to Japan, and actually Kyle and a group of other people came too. And Keith and I went by ourselves to the old Nakasendo Road in the Nagano area, and we hiked from historic village to historic village.
Awesome.
And this was like the end of November. So ultimately, it was just the two of us on this trail that took like all day to go from one village to the other. And the only thing we came across were like snow monkeys playing in the bamboo.
Yeah.
And, we found this great little tea house that's only open like one day a week in the winter. And guess what? It was open the day we were there. And we were the only two people in there. And the old dude who worked there was just wonderful. He spoke a little bit of English. He made us tea. He gave us plum wine. He roasted some Japanese mountain sweet potato. We spent like a good half an hour in there hanging out with him, and it really warmed us up because it was pretty cold too. Yeah. And then as we're approaching our final destination, which is this village called Magome, and it's up high on this hill and it overlooks the whole valley. As we were approaching it, I said, the only thing that would make this even more magical is if it started snowing. And sure enough, flurries started to flurry as we're going on there.
My God.
It was like,
why do we love it so much? Because we were there, and I'm like, I really felt. I've been to Thailand and I've been to Cambodia, and I got a similar feeling, but culturally, I'm even more in line with the vibe in Japan. And
yeah.
And I wonder, like, why is that? And also, we strongly considered for a couple of weeks when we got back, like, what would it take to live out there? But it's so hard to become a citizen and all that.
It is hard to become a citizen. It's a little bit of a different scenario when you want to, as opposed
and also
to
how bizarre and strange is it that we all seem to have these stories about how warm the people are and how inviting they are. I got tattooed when I was out there by.
I wanted to do that, but I'm like, I don't want to waste all those hours doing it. I totally wanted to do that, but
I had to. I'm as big of a fan as I am of all the artists I mentioned. I'm a huge fan of this artist named Horimitsu, and he had a shop in Tokyo. It was like one of our last days of the trip, and we scheduled it for the end so that we wouldn't have that vibe that you were discussing.
And you also wouldn't have pain.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't as painful as other tattoos, but it was Tabori style, so it was a weird feeling. And I'm so glad I went. This guy's one of the nicest guys I've ever met. He's a super famous like tattoo artist. Everybody knows him. And he tattooed John Mayer. And he had this painting at the entrance of his shop. And it blew my mind because this is one of these guys who stylizes even within traditional Japanese tattooing.
Wow.
And I said, man, if you guys know, I'm sure when you get tattooed, they show you a drawing at first that they sketch like on this thin tracing paper, and I try to collect those from the artists. They don't like to usually part with them, but I try to collect them sometimes.
I saved mine too.
Yeah. So I asked Horimitsu, like, do you have any drawings? Because he just freehand draws it on my arm. Yeah. And so he's like, oh, I don't really have anything. I'm like, okay, no worries. I'll if you have any old sketches, I'll pay you for one before you leave if it's okay. And he was like literally going, oh my God, I don't have anything, like, looking around. And he goes, oh, we'll figure something out. I'm like, okay. So I got tattooed. It was awesome. I love my tattoo. And at the end, he goes, here, just take this painting. I'm like, what? Dude, it's an actual full-on painting, like ink and watercolor. And this is something that I would have happily paid, thousands of dollars for. It's like, and he's so well known. It's like.
Because that you just said something that a lot of people don't understand, or a lot of people do understand. If you go to Japan or any other country for that matter, where you're not necessarily fluent in that language, if you show respect, enthusiasm, kindness, and just be an all-around good person, you're going to get treated like gold, and they're going to reciprocate in spades, right? And it's just one of those things where getting back to your point about why do we love this so much? Why do we feel so at home in Japan? For me personally, when I was a little boy watching Ultraman and Godzilla, I've always wanted to go to Japan. I didn't know much about it, but I knew it was cool. Giant monsters, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
The people seem really neat.
Right.
And I've said this story many times. When I forget what grade it was. My mom asked me where I wanted to go for my birthday. And she was thinking I was going to say like McDonald's, Burger King, pizza. And I said, I want to go to Japan, Mom. Yeah. So, it was like that moment came to my mind when I went to Japan with Kyle for my second trip. And we did the Hail to the King awesome documentary that he did. and we were sitting in front of the Godzilla mural at Toho Studios, and he did like a little short interview with me. And what came to my mind was this little boy from Pine Beach, New Jersey, thinking he wanted to go to Japan and thinking, oh my God, I'll never get there. And then I'm sitting there underneath this big thing, which I loved ever since I was a kid, having this amazing adventure. That to me, I'm so grateful for that, and I will always be grateful for that. And that will always be one of the high points of my experience in the fandom and on my collecting journey. So
it's so amazing, man.
Kyle and everything, and yeah, it is amazing. And I think that the first time I got off the plane in Japan, it was just Keith and I. We went for the first time, and when we're still living in California, 2006. I immediately felt that this place is very foreign yet strangely familiar. Okay, and I'm sure you felt that way too.
Same.
And it's hard to articulate it, but there are those of us who just get it, and those of us who don't get it. Like my parents, and I have a lot of friends who are like, dude, of all the places in the world to go, you want to go to Japan and you want to go back? Why don't you want to go to Paris? Why don't you want to go to Rome? And I do want to go to those places, but there is some kind of a connection that has to do with these films, but that's just a small part of it.
Right.
It's an appreciation of the culture and the vibe and the aesthetic. And one thing that I find very harmonious about Japan is the juxtaposition of the old and the new, like Akihabara and then Kyoto. They're completely different theories, everything brand new, shiny, bright lights, electronics. And then you got, Kyoto, an old shop, an old stand where they're sweeping with a broom made out of a twig and whatever. It's just that harmonious juxtaposition. I don't know. I can't.
It's everything from it's everything from my fantastical upbringing. It's like all the cartoons, all the movies, dude. Blade Runner. Everything prepared me for the moment that I got off the plane and I was there. I'm like, oh, I'm literally in the place where I used to like fantasize about going. It's almost as if you could step off a plane and be in Narnia or something, because it was so
100%.
It was so hyped up to yourself as a kid. And now it's weird because now I get back and now I'm in the States. And yeah, I've been around the world and I want to go to places, but I'd rather go to Japan 5 more times, bringing 5 more people who've never been with me and like having that experience than go to a new place for myself. Now it's hard to articulate to people who don't feel the same way.
I understand. I get you, man. We get each other. We're simpatico. We get it. And, a lot of us feel the same way. So anyway, we totally are digressing. So let's go back to what we were talking about. Now, we're almost through all my questions.
AJ could never have these questions with me.
Oh, yeah. See, these are definitely not AJ questions.
It's just you and me, David. You understand?
I'm not copying.
No.
Okay. AJ did a fantastic job.
I'm just kidding. I'm trolling AJ.
So switching gears again, what type of toys and collectibles currently reside in your collection, your personal collection?
Man, this is the thing, is like it's literally the apex of my collecting is now. Look, for so much of my life I had Godzilla and monster figures here and there, and years and years ago I splurged on a Giron, I think it's the Rocket Pro figure, the Giron figure. And it was like, that's it. I'm never going to buy another one. It's too expensive. I can't afford it. And as my career started to progress to the point where I could afford some, I started doing like retro revenge purchases. What I'm saying? I'm like, that's it. I'm going to get the figure that I wanted the whole time. And it just so happened that I also started meeting a bunch of new friends who are in the collectors community and learning so much about it. And so I got really, I quickly picked up some X Plus figures that were like, if I only could get this X Plus figure, I would just get this one. And one of them was the gigantic 62, which sits here. I'll just peek him in. There he is.
Oh, yeah. He's up there.
That was like, if I only get one, that might have to be it. And I got lucky. Someone in Miami was selling one. And then, I love the Showa stuff. I love a few suits. Like, I think my favorite current X Plus figure is the 30 centimeter 67 suit. I feel like this does not get enough love. I know people like it.
I love it. I think it's a great suit. I mean, it's
Well,
not the
even if
prettiest suit, but I like it a lot.
yeah, even if like just suit aside, like this is such an amazing figure. It's massive. It's probably the biggest one in the 30 centimeters, I think.
It doesn't fit on my shelf. It's that big. I have to. He's not. He has to like lean outwards because he doesn't fit. He's definitely taller than most.
And it just does it for me. Like it just scratches that itch. And so I love that. But I also really love the Sofubi stuff, and I love the Marusan and Marmot and Bullmark stuff like that. And I really love
everything. A little bit of
I
everything.
do. I really do. But recently I got this Astromons from Max Toyco, Mark Nagata.
Oh, that's a Mark piece. That's beautiful.
Dude, I was shocked by how affordable it was. It was like 70, 80 bucks or something like that. It's a big, chunky figure. You know what I mean?
Mark stuff is amazing, but you have to be quick on the draw because
I wasn't.
I'm
telling you.
I'm always like, okay, I want it, and then I forget, and then I'll get one of these days.
I think this even might still be available, and it's like I think this is one of my favorite figures. The matte paint on the body, and then the gloss paint on the flower. I mean,
it's beautiful.
To me, I feel like somebody should pay him to do the whole series. Like, I would love an entire line like this. I really, really, I think it stands up to anything I have.
But I can't get Astromons. I'll tell you why. Because
What?
I limit myself to Ultra Q and Ultraman, the first 39 episodes. I can't. Seriously, I can't go down that road.
No way.
Yeah, way.
Get out of here.
I can't do it. I can appreciate it. I can love viewers and everything. I can't.
Interesting.
I have not enough space. And the one I saw when I was a kid was
fair enough. I tend to. I'm probably a nightmare in that respect because I just like the sculpts and paints that I like. And
me too, but I can't do it.
But it could be a figure that I don't even know. Like this. I'm assuming this is a Garamon because there's no balloon, but this Garamon figure is one of the sculpts that I love the most, and
it could be Pigmon. You know why? Because Pigmon showed up in 2 episodes. In the second episode, he did not have a balloon.
Then we'll call him Pigmon.
We don't know.
Yeah, but there's just certain things like that. Like to me, Gango is the greatest design kaiju of all time.
Greatest design
of all time. Like this is ridiculous. How does this exist?
I'm so glad you got that. I thought of you.
Oh my god! Thank you.
I know somebody who wants it, so I'm glad he found it.
Thank you. And I'm glad the word's getting around that I like Gango because I'm like, well, whenever anybody wants to part with Gango, hit me up first.
But yes, no, it's great stuff, and
I love it.
I love that. This is how we all came together.
Yeah.
And I didn't know any of these guys before I started to join, the X Plus collecting group and Godzilla collecting group. And then I met everybody at G-Fest face to face. And the weird thing is, Peter, we had been talking for, months or even a year. And as soon as we met each other in person, it didn't feel weird. It felt like we already knew each other. So
yeah,
that's something that you can look forward to as well.
There's a cool vibe in the group too. Like it seems like there's like an energy like that's homogenous throughout everybody. There's like some kind of vibe that everybody consists.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there of course there's every collecting world has its moments, and we definitely have had moments.
There's dynamic personalities, but there's a consistent vibe that I've sensed as an outside looking in. What I discovered first through Leslie's videos.
Leslie's he's
the first one I discovered, and then from him I saw Rich Aso's videos, and then I saw this podcast, and I started seeing everything. Like, oh, look at this whole community! I wasn't aware.
Yeah, Rich and Leslie were pioneers, and of course Kyle had Kaiju Cast all throughout,
right?
Which was a podcast. It wasn't necessarily videos,
yeah, but
these guys were the pioneers in this whole thing, and they're the ones that got me interested in sort of doing this kind of thing. So anyway, we're going on and on, but I love every minute of it. So real quick, last question. Well, I have a couple more like bonus questions, but the last real question.
Let's go.
What are the upcoming events or conventions or shows that you're looking forward to going to and participating in once this pandemic is over?
At this point, I would be ecstatic to be at my local mall set up in front of a CVS pharmacy. But this year, my plan was obviously to do Comic-Con again, but my plan was to be at G-Fest. I've never been. and I was planning to go. I didn't even want to set up. I just wanted to go. I wanted to go attend, just wanted to hang. And so that was one of my biggest plans of the year, but that will definitely be in the cards. I like visiting. I like doing conventions based on like visiting cities. So like I want to be in California every year. I want to be in New York every year. And I want to be somewhere in the Midwest every year. I'm always in Florida. So it's like I want to hit those regions every year. So, that's perfect. I love 5 Points in Brooklyn. If you guys have never been, that show is just chef's kiss, bro. It's small, curated, but you got great names, great product, and the vibe is unlike any other show. It's like a brewery hang. It's just fantastic. And then, and you got to love Decon. Designer Con is amazing in California. Those guys, gave me my first shot outside of Florida to be in a convention. And so those things, that's what I love doing. But what I really want to do is just go visit everyone. Like we have all these friends throughout the years now at Sideshow and Super 7. And I wanted to go visit everybody this year. I work with Skybound now out of LA. And
I love the guys from Super 7. I love Brian. Brian's a great guy.
There's so many cool people that you only get to see them at conventions. So I miss that the most about conventions is hanging and seeing everybody. And like, it's like a celebration of the work everyone's been doing all year and a party. And I just can't wait. That's what I want to do so bad,
Well, not that
Mondo Con.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not that there's going to be a convention, but you should definitely come up and see Kyle and I in the Pacific Northwest.
Dude, done.
Yeah, come on up.
That would be in a heartbeat, man.
We'll just have our own little convention up here, which will be kind of fun.
You guys got some good shows up there too, by the way. Isn't Emerald City near you?
Emerald City is right. Is a huge deal nowadays. It's grown like exponentially since I've lived in the city, which has been like 13 years now. And Rose City Comic Con is getting big, and But anyway, aside from that, just come on up and hang with us. You can see,
on it.
Kaiju Cast HQ, and then you guys can zip on up to Seattle, and we can go to that.
Oh yeah, that's in the cards, man, for sure.
Yep, definitely. So, 2 rapid fire questions.
Go.
Favorite Godzilla film? Go. Don't think about it.
I still think it's Godzilla vs. Sea Monster.
Excellent choice. Favorite top 3 Ultraman episodes?
Well, I have to pick Bemular, Gango, and I really like the second Bolton episode. But
I like the Bolton 2 episode.
And I love Canagon. Don't make me do this. That's it. I love those episodes so much. I'm gonna say this. I think Ultraman TV episode, especially that first season, and I love Ultra 7, is some of the best kaiju anything ever. And my metric is how long my wife Gabby will sit and watch. She'll always watch anything out of love for a certain amount of time, but she will actually be stoked to watch Ultraman episodes. And we sing the song without knowing what the words are, and we just
God, that's great.
We make up our own lyrics. It's the best.
That's gold. She's a kid.
I love it.
Man. It's interesting that you chose 2 Ultraman episodes where they use the same suit.
I know. I love it.
Because Gyango is a retooled Bemlar suit. Yep. And that Reborn is beautiful, and I'm not familiar with that one.
This is a bull mark, and shout out Anthony at Otaku America who hooked me up with this.
That's a repro from a vintage design, or I'm
sure it is.
Yeah.
You can see. I don't know if you can see.
Cool. I can't really, but that's okay.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, it probably is. I just love that, like that stupid sculpt. How good is that? I totally borrowed their aesthetic when I was designing Takero's head.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
A little bit of that inspiration.
Absolutely. All right, Peter.
All right, man.
Any upcoming projects that you'd like to announce before we end this?
When is this going to air?
This is going to air on the 10th of October.
Okay. I can only tease something.
I can say a different time so you could show the whole thing.
Too late. Let's see. How do I do this? Okay.
How do you do this?
I'm going to go off camera and I'll be right on it in a second.
All right. Okay. All right. Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, there's more. I know what that is.
That's it. That's a big exclusive.
That's more than I thought you would give us. That's pretty damn cool.
I'm a man of the people, David. You
You are a
understand?
man of the people. Well, listen, thank you so very much for taking the time to chat with me and
Heck yeah.
let our viewers get to know who you are and all about your work. And thanks for some great conversation that I didn't really anticipate happening, but that really, it took its, different. I can't talk now.
Yeah, we're a couple of friends, and we have a lot of common interests, and we're just having a great time. And that's why I think your show's so good, because it just kind of has that natural flow to it.
It did.
I'm super honored and happy to be here and talk, and I'd love to come back anytime and geek out. And if you guys ever do like a anticipation of a release, or we can talk about a print that comes out, whatever, I'm just happy to be a part of it. So thank you, man. Appreciate it.
No, it's definitely our pleasure. And, hopefully we will see a lot more from you, and I can't wait to see that piece in its entirety. Yes. Thanks so much, Peter. Thanks so much, Peter. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, David. Thanks, guys.
Bye.